Hey, Wes here. Thanks for joining me today. Today I've got my Anywhere Kiln. I'm going to use it on my back patio, and to make it a little bit different, I'm going to fire with coal, lump coal. Works pretty darn well. So let's get started. First of all, you can see I've got some bricks here to raise the kiln up above the ground level. Two reasons. One, this gets pretty hot underneath, so you want to protect that lower surface. The other thing is there are lots of holes in the bottom here, and that ventilation, the extra air really makes a huge difference. So I don't want to let anything get in the way of having good ventilation. The one thing that's important is to have some kiln furniture. I want to raise the pot up off the surface. I want to give a good airflow underneath it. So in this case, I just have some broken up bricks, but you could use rocks, anything that's not going to burn. And then what I will do is set a piece of pottery sherd on top of that, and that's where my pot will actually sit. Here's what I'm firing today. It's actually going to be a rattle. Set that in the middle. Hopefully it doesn't roll away. And I'm going to build some other sherds around it, and two reasons for these sherds. One, it will protect the painting, so I'm less likely to get fire clouds. And also, this is a pretty cool day. It's somewhere between 30 and 40 degrees Fahrenheit. So that will help with thermal shock, particularly as it cools down. All right, get something on the top. Hopefully that all just stays in place. All right, what is an Anywhere Kiln? This is just a canning kettle. It's a steel enameled canning kettle. Got it on Amazon. You want to get the biggest one that you can afford because it will limit the size of the pottery you have. And then I just simply drilled holes in it. You need to get a lot of airflow. If I were to do it again, I may not put so many holes at the top. Just have them at the bottom and try and get a little bit better air circulation. But this thing has held up pretty well, and I've used it several times, and it looks like it has a fair amount of life left in it. The next step is to put in the coal. And what I've done, I get large chunks of coal. That works great. But I break them up or cut them up with a hatchet, and they all are roughly the same size. And you can see in comparison to my hand, I think it's roughly 2 to 3 inches in each direction. If it's too big, you'll have a hard time starting. There's a mistake. You want them all about the same size. That way they'll all burn about at the same rate. I found the biggest challenge with coal is getting it started. Once it starts, it burns reasonably hot, and it burns a long time, so you get a long soak on your firing. I think you can use any kind of coal you want for this kind of firing. This is actually lignite coal, which is a really low-grade coal, and that doesn't really make any difference, but you could use bituminous or anthracite or anything you want. I think a higher grade coal would probably give you a somewhat hotter fire. And the nice thing with coal is it's not expensive if you can find it. That is the challenge. Western part of the country, and there's coal mines, and I think in Pennsylvania, Virginia, and so on. But I can buy this coal for 9 cents a pound. That's 1/10 the cost of lump charcoal. Lump charcoal works great in this kind of kiln, but some people have commented that it's just expensive. And so, I don't know, this is costing a couple bucks, or just a few dollars. So that is reasonable. what you might do is check online. Like I went to Google Maps or just Google for coal sales near me. That can be okay. So I think that is pretty good for now. So this took about 3/4 of a 5-gallon bucket. Like I said, the most difficult part is getting this started. So I am using some lump charcoal. This is mesquite, doesn't make any difference. And I'm going to get some of these coals started right on the very top. You can expect that this is going to take a couple hours to get going. The whole firing probably roughly 6 hours for something this small. Some other coal fires take quite a lot longer than that. I think you could also just build a wood fire on top. That would probably work pretty well too. Okay, I think that's good. Now one thing you want to be careful of, this is just lighter fluid, and you don't want to get that on your pot. So I'm going to be a little bit careful. I don't think it'll drip down too much. But if it gets on your pot, it'll stain it. That is not a good thing. Let's get this started. I may need to add some additional lighter fluid. We'll see how this burns down. Another option is to get your charcoal in a separate container and get it started separately, and then once it gets going good, you can just pour it on top of your coal. That seems to work pretty well too. Sometimes what I've done with that is had a mixture of charcoal and small pieces of coal and get that all started separately. The charcoal has been going a few minutes, got started, so I'm just going to spread it out a little bit. The idea is hopefully for it to catch this coal. I don't think it needs to be a lot. Again, this is kind of a slow process here. Once it gets going, it goes really well. Since the last video that I did with this Anywhere Kiln, a number of questions have regularly come up. One is, where can you put this? Well, pretty much anywhere you want, but keep in mind that it's going to get kind of hot underneath. I can put my hand underneath or okay. I've got this on a piece of cement, but I've got it raised up. It will get hot. I would not put it on a wooden deck. I think it could catch fire. It's really very possible. If you put it out on the grass, it's probably going to kill the grass just below it. Put a piece of dirt or something like that, and raising it up, I think, really is helpful. Some people have asked, well, can you eat out of this pottery? Is it food safe? Well, this is a low-fired, fully ceramic pottery. It is sintered, but it is not vitrified. In other words, if you put water in it, the water is going to seep through. The issue is, and I think the FDA would say, well, you're going to get food particles down in those pores, and that could go bad. So most people would say this is not food safe. I do know that Native Americans use this pottery for hundreds of years, but use your common sense before you start eating out of it. It's one thing if it's wet kind of food versus dry kind of food. Other people have said, well, can you use glaze on this? Well, I'm not a studio potter, but my understanding is that glaze needs hotter temperatures than what this can do. So read the directions on whatever glaze you're thinking of, and keep in mind that most of the temps here are going to be 800 to 900 Celsius. I think you could potentially get to 1,000 Celsius, but probably nothing more than that. So some raku glazes might work with this. I've never tried that. I don't know anything about it, but that's maybe something to consider. Others have asked, hey, can you use wood in this thing? And my guess is no. I have not tried it. I don't think there's enough airflow, and there's not enough energy in wood to get things hot enough. This really works well for charcoal. You can use briquettes or lump charcoal, or in this case I'm using coal. Those all work well. I don't know what other kind of fuel you might use. But given that, these things are great because you can use them kind of anywhere. It is limited in size, but you know, people have talked about using the big laundry drums from a washing machine. That would be larger and would maybe work really, really well. I'd like to try that sometime. But given all those things, for me, for a small kind of a pot, when I only do one thing, this works really great. It's been going for about a half hour and the coal is starting. One thing that I really like about this is that it is a slow process. If you have a wood fire, it can work great, but it is kind of a violent affair, and the chances of getting thermal shock and cracking, breaking your pots is much higher. With this, it ramps up really quite slowly, and so that really helps out. I also like my little Anywhere kiln because it is small and compact, and I don't use any more fuel than necessary. I suppose the downside is that it's a limited size, so you can't fire large things. The fire's been going for an hour and a half, so it has not reached its maximum temperature. It will, I think, within an hour. It has been about 3 hours since this got started, and it has reached its maximum temperature, probably a little past. Can't really tell for sure, but I think it's 750 Celsius about. Should be about right. Still got several hours to go before it's cool enough to pull out. It has been 5.5 hours. This is still around 250 Celsius, so I'm pushing it a little bit. But as usual, I'm impatient. But you can see how the sherds protect the pot. And it keeps the ashes from sitting right on it. Now, sometimes you don't want to use sherds. You know, you could just let the coal or the charcoal touch the pot, and you might end up with some really nice fire clouds. A little on the hot side. But I think it turned out okay. So this is how the Anywhere kiln works. Pretty slick, I would say. Now, what you need to do is be careful about fire. These coals can stay burning for 24 hours, even more. It's important to have a water source around in case things get out of control. You have to just let these sit and make sure that they are totally out before you put them in the garbage. I have a metal can with a metal lid, and that's where I put them to make sure that I don't have a fire problem. Hopefully you can see how this anywhere, any place little kiln will work for you. And in fact, if you don't have a place where you live, maybe you could take it to a park. Spend the day at a park, have a picnic, and fire some pottery. There's probably a lot of places that this could work if you just kind of check things out. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe. Comments are always welcome. Appreciate that. And until next time, this is Wes wishing you health, happiness, peace, and love. Take care. Bye-bye.